Salutations gamers, I'm the OgichiGame and welcome back to the animation tutorial series. Today I'm just going to talk very briefly on sort of a bare bones basics behind a transformation sort of animation. We're not doing a full body transformation, we're just going to do an arm, and we're just going to, again, just sort of the bare bone basics of what you really need when making a transformation. So I just grabbed this image here that I had from a comic I'm working on, and we're going to be working on his arm here and showing you a very simple sort of transformation. We're going to be, now this character in particular is a shapeshifter, and he has this shape, and there's something that he does frequently within the comic called the Black Hand, where his arm, as well as his sleeve, sort of turns into this black claw-like, tentacle-y sort of hand thing. And again, we're just going to show you the bare bone basics behind it. If you were doing a proper full-on transformation, you would want to add a lot more motions than what I have here, but I'm just showing you just how to get from one point to the other a simple way. So I've added a little bit of motion here just to, a little bit of motion in the arm, just so there's a bit there, but you know what, you would want to have a lot more. You would, obviously, you want to have, like, this coat should be, like, flowing in the wind. Maybe this arm is doing something. His head, maybe he's kind of, like, leaning forward a bit as he's, sort of, maybe he needs to, like, charge his magic to transform his arm, so maybe he's leaning forward a bit as he's sort of, like, bringing his arm up, into position for his transformation, so maybe he's moving a bit like that. And the transformation itself, you could also add a little bit to it if you wanted to, but again, this is the very basics of how we're going to get from point A to point B. So, for starters, we need to, the Black Hand is, well, it's black. That's why it's called the Black Hand. It's a coal-like black. Not always, sometimes it's kind of a purplish too, but for the most part, it's black. So I'm just stuck with just a black color. So we have the arm, and then I have what I call the black, which the arm just kind of bends in this motion up until this point right here where it becomes invisible. And at that point, there's a copy of the layer, which is sort of a reverse, where it's invisible up until this point. Now, the only difference between these two layers here is that on this layer, this hand is a gradient. Okay, so if you see here, this hand that we have selected is a gradient. And that gradient is the grayish color of the hand and black. And you can see here, the thing that Anime Studio has given us, this bubbly thingy here, which allows us to control the gradient of the arm itself. Now, the hand comes up, that it becomes visible, and as you can see already, that gradient effect starts to take place, and then as it moves the rest of the way up, the gradient moves, turning the entire arm black. And also, to do that, you would want to keep in mind you need to have the stroke have a gradient effect as well, which to do that, all you need to do is click right down here on the Advanced tab, open that up, and you can change the strokes to have a gradient effect as well. Very simple, and you have this sort of hand. And then we have, now that the hand has changed color, that's a very simple transformation of one color to a next, we're using a gradient effect. There are other means of changing a color from one to another, simple effects, and I might actually show that in a minute. In fact, hold on, let me just double check. I do believe that you can change the color. Yes, right here, layer color. You can actually have transitions from color to color, and I will show that a little later in the video, but for now, let's just go over this. So you have the character, he brings his arm up, the hand becomes black, then the rest of that, now we go into a sort of transformation. Again, the motion, I'm just using the motion just to have a little bit more than what I would have had otherwise. Again, you would want to have, like, full on, like, you want to have this coat swaying, maybe he's leaning forward a bit, there's some motion on the rest of the coat, obviously with, like, this thing here that should be blowing a little bit, this effect on his eyes should be moving, this glow should be moving in and out, the beard should be moving a bit as well, the ears, everything, to really bring everything to life. But we're just focusing on the transformation right now. So from here, we want the Black Hand to go to this position here, as you can see. where the hand is out, the claws are sticking out, and the arm is sort of, you can tell that underneath the coat, that the arm has just sort of merged into this weird black oozy whatever it is. That you see, you can, like, all the muscle or whatever that was underneath here, all the arm that was once underneath here is now just this thing, and even the coat has become a part of it. And it's very simple to get from one point to the other in a very brief animation. Now, we have two parts, a claw and Black Hand 2. Now this, as you can see, so immediately it pops, it's something else. You could make the transition maybe a little bit smoother if you wanted. You could simply by adding more keyframes and having this have a gradient effect which rises up and sort of becomes this, and then move it across, as you see here, if you really wanted to. And that's perfectly fine. I just wanted this to be a much faster motion, just for the purposes of our tutorial's sake. So it's just a very fast motion where it's like, so again, you can sort of transition it to this, just as we transitioned the color and this motion. You can very easily sort of transition the color again, and then and motion everything into this blob-like state easily enough. But let's move on. So then it just comes across, and that's all it really is. It just, the arm is this whole blobbish sort of thing, and the claw are these several little bits which sort of just stick out from the blob and move with it and become the black hand you see here, like so. Simple enough. And in the end, it should look maybe a little something like this. Anyway, though, let's also talk very briefly about transitioning colors, because maybe you don't want to use a gradient effect, and that's perfectly fine if you don't. So let's just close out of these and go on to layer 1 and create a circle. Okay. And let's get rid of that gradient effect. We don't want the gradient effect. Advanced, we don't want a gradient effect on that. Good, okay. So let's add a keyframe on layer 1, where we want this to be gray. Animation. Add keyframe. And to make sure that we have the color, let's go back into animation keyframes and copy current frames, which from layer 1 to layer 1, and add layer color. So now we have a keyframe for the color. And let's give it a 1 second change. We want the color of this to change to, let's say, an aquamarine. Like so. And the stroke, we obviously don't want the stroke to stay that grayish color, so let's make it a darker version of that aquamarine. And actually, just so we can see those strokes a bit better, let's bring those up to like 18. There we go. So now we have this, as you can see here, and we're going to add a keyframe, just so that we have the color keyframes, as you can see here. So now it will transition over a second to this other color, like so. And you can use this in transformations very simply, like perhaps if you're doing something like, say, the Hulk, where you need him to become, you know, the big green mean fighting machine. You can very easily just have the colors transition from one to the other as the transformation takes place. Very simply enough. Okay. Anyway, though, I hope this tutorial was helpful. If it was, make sure to leave a like on it. Otherwise, I'll see all of you guys in the next one. Bye-bye! Oh, and also, please make sure to leave any comments if you have any questions about anything related to animation. Thank you.